Greetings and salutations, word campers out there in Santa Clarita and virtually everywhere the internet can reach you. It is I, Johnny Fazio, and I have the pleasure of introducing our next guest, who is going to be talking about giving back to WordPress, the most giving platform on the planet. The gentleman's name is Sergio Scabuzzo, and he's showing you the buzz about how you can get back to WordPress and journey into that whole track ticket submission. He's been doing WordPress for a long time. He has over 300 WordPress sites that he manages and keeps in top shape. He also gets into nature and beekeeping and some coding. So without further ado, Sergio Scabuzzo.
Great. Hey, all. Thanks for being here on a Saturday. I hope you've been learning a lot on the other talks, and hopefully you will get some good knowledge out of this one as well. So let's get started. First, I'm gonna say I'm unusually nervous for not having anyone in front of me. Talking to a screen is a little different than to a crowd, so bear with me. So today we'll be, like Johnny mentioned a second ago, talking about the what's and the how's of contributing to WordPress. And there are many different ways of doing this. But what we will be talking about specifically today is sharing code to WordPress core in order to improve the platform. And there are a bazillion different ways to do this. And today I'm trying to share what is mostly one of the official takes, and it should be easier to set up than most others. And at the end, we will end up with a patched core setup. Now, this was going to be originally a, excuse me, it was going to be originally a workshop, so now it's going to be a whole lot of slides. So hopefully this will still be just as good. So what I'm going to try not to do is not get into the weeds. There is a lot to go into this subject, but I'm going to try to keep it kind of broad so we can all get started. And unit testing is something I will not cover because this is something that could easily fill a book or just another talk all on its own. And we'll be using Git as opposed to SVN, which is the basically like how you track the code, and we're going to be setting up a patch. Now, what to contribute, right? To the left of the screen, you'll see what was my first WordPress core contribution. At the time, I was doing a lot of uploading of themes and plugins manually, and this took you to this screen you see here, where when you needed to activate the plugin, you may miss this if you blink too slowly, but when you click the button, you see the link on the right jump up. As silly as that is, that ended up getting to me after thousands of times. So that's what started my journey into contributing to WordPress and figuring out how that all works. You will no longer see this, by the way. So it did get approved. Now to the right, you see basically this kind of my takes on what you can contribute. Usually you can improve an existing feature, something like on the media page, when you upload an animated GIF, what happens, at least currently, is that the thumbnails no longer have any of the animations. This could be fixed with a bit of code and using ImageMagick, which is what WordPress generally uses to handle images. There is a ticket ongoing about this. Also, you can create a new ticket, something maybe improving WordPress altogether, like maybe having an automatic night mode or something that affects the dashboard, or something that you could come up with, of course. And another way is obviously also just fixing someone else's bugs or another bug that's existing right now. Excuse me. That's easily searchable if you look for good first bugs and on track, which is something I'm going to be covering in a second. Now, our tickets, admittedly, it's a little bit contrived. It's as simple a ticket as I could come up with, so we could all get this going easily. And what it is the upload input field for plugins or themes. The button for the upload field is misaligned because of padding issues. So we are going to fix that today, and maybe it'll get patched. Who knows? Now, the general path to that I normally see, at least for contributing to WordPress, is finding a misaligned button or an issue that you want to take care of, and then proposing a ticket or a change on track that we'll be covering in a second again. Then you or someone else will add a ticket, a patch for resolving this problem. And usually there will be, well, almost usually always, there's back and forth about what problem it will fix, exactly how and why this is needed. And often there will be several patches that are added afterwards to improve on the original patch. And if all goes well and the committer or others approve, then it will get added to core eventually, or whatever part of WordPress you're working on. So I mentioned track a couple of times. Track is how WordPress keeps track of tasks and bugs. And it is open source. And to be able to use this, the address you see it there is core.track.wordpress.com. And you do need a WordPress.org account to be able to log in. So if you don't have one, you will need to configure one, to sign up to WordPress.org. Now, one thing to note also, you see on the right, this is the general field, the form field to create a ticket. On the right hand here, where you see wiki formatting, there you can click on that link, and it'll show you basically a markup of how you're able to extend that form so you can show block formatting or add images or other formatting that will improve the visual representation of your ticket or comment, I guess. And you want to be as detailed as possible so you don't run into more unnecessary questions or back and forth. That's why you have all the fields at the bottom, like the component and the focuses and what you're going to be specifically working on. And definitely try to, if you can, upload images and files to further add the description. This is the ticket that I created for the for this misaligned button. That in retrospect, I'm kind of glad I'm not doing it live because so many things could have gone wrong doing this live. I'm glad we have the slides up. One thing to note on this is on the top left, you see number 49914. That is our ticket number, and we will be using that later. Also, under attachments, you see I added basically several of the most prominent browsers before screenshots to show people what it looks like now and later on what it can look like after the patch gets applied. Now, for the local setup, so this ticket has been created already, and we want to work on it. If you don't have this already set up, what we need to do is start installing things. VirtualBox is what I would start is essentially what creates a virtual computer inside of your running operating system. What this does is it lets you run another operating system within your current running operating system. Like if you're running Windows, you can run a fully fledged Linux version or Windows or several at a time, even creating virtual networks in between them. This is a very powerful piece of software, and we'll be using it to run our virtual server. Now, after that, we install Vagrant, which you have the download link there. This Vagrant tool, what it does is kind of a provisioner of sorts that configures the VirtualBox that we will be running. So it's kind of a scripting of sorts. Vagrant also comes with plugins, and the one that we will be using is Vagrant Host Updater or Host Updater. What this does is very handy. Otherwise, you would have to manually update your host file, which is how you tell your computer to connect to the domains you're provisioning that we'll be provisioning for local local development, so you don't have to use IP addresses, etc. So this is all automated for us. The domains such as vvv.text, which I will test actually, that I'll show you in a little bit. We will be using Git, not SVN, like I said, the Subversion, which is what WordPress uses by default. Git is generally more, well, depends who you ask, I guess, but more accessible, and people use it much more often than not. I use it more. SVN kind of tends to give me headaches when I try to work on it. So this is what we're going to be working on with today. It is a version control system, and what it does is it allows us to work with multiple developers at once. GitHub is kind of what has made it more popular nowadays. It's usually very simple to set up on Linux and or Mac OS. Windows is a little bit harder, but it's still doable. This is outside of the scope of this talk, so that's where if you don't have it already set up, you're probably gonna have to do a little bit of web searching. Now, VVV is a Vagrant configuration. VVV stands for, I always stumble on this one, but Varying Vagrant Vagrants. Try to say that quickly 10 times. What it is a configuration for developing with WordPress. So this configuration, when ran, will run on Vagrant, which Vagrant will then configure the VirtualBox or the virtual machine that we're creating that will be running on VirtualBox. Okay, here's a sample of pulling VVV to your local computer. If you notice the second line there, we're cloning, I hope you can see the text. We're cloning Vagrant onto a Vagrant directory. And then the two ampersands after that, what they do is they say that if the command to the left executes correctly without any errors, it'll run the command to the right. It's kind of a Boolean of sorts. So then the command executed correctly, we changed directories to Vagrant directory, and then that also executed correctly. So now we ran Vagrant status. Excuse me. What Vagrant status does is it just creates a copy of the default configuration file for Vagrant or for VVV and creates a config file. So it goes from default config.yaml to config.yaml. YAML files are basically just configuration files, and it's like a format that works through indentation. We'll look at one in a second. So at this point, what we want to do is we have the repo down there downloaded into the Vagrant folder, and we want to edit the config file. So whatever editor you use, you want to open in the config directory where we are now, the config.yaml, sorry, we're in the Vagrant directory. The config directory is in there, and then we want to open up the config.yaml file. This is what will tell Vagrant what to do and what to download, etc., including PHP, MySQL, and other things. What we're doing here is we are enabling the WordPress trunk environment out of other environments that VVV has available for us. And we're also enabling Git. Otherwise, it would be running through SVN. So on line 59 of that page, that file, we're going to switch skip provisioning from true to false, which will enable that to be provisioned. And 3 lines below that, you will see custom VCS, which is the version control system that we will be using, which is Git. Now, trunk, what trunk is trunk is the current version of the code that people are working on for WordPress. It's not the latest version like 5.4 or 5.5 or whichever version there is out there. This is the current code that is actually actively being worked on. And that's why we want to use this code. So we're working with the latest and greatest, and we know what we're doing, what we're working with. So after saving this file, what we want to do is we want to run Vagrant up with a provision flag. What this does is this now makes all the magic happen. It runs this script through Vagrant and downloads everything for us and configures it, which is what we're going to see next. So you see we run the Vagrant up file, Vagrant up with a provision flag, and we start downloading all of the things that we need. It downloaded Ubuntu there for a server, etc. Now at the end, I kind of skipped ahead because it takes a little bit. We see that we have a very cute, I'm assuming, bear, saying that we finished and to visit vvv.test. Now, with the plugin that we installed earlier, the Vagrant Provisioner, or Provision Host Updater, now we can go to vvv.test and it'll automatically go to that virtual box that we've created. Whoop, I just, so this here is what the dashboard for VVV looks like. I know the text is quite small, but I just wanted to give you kind of a broad idea of what it looks like. Now, there's a lot of tools there. You can link to PHPMyAdmin and MailHog, which is the email catcher for this. So you can test the emails that are going in and out, etc. The thing that I want to mention here is the 3 gray boxes that we have. You may not be able, you likely are not able to read it, but it says WordPress 1, WordPress 2, and WordPress trunk. The WordPress 1 and 2, what they are virtual websites that have been created that we can access and edit that are usually used for just creating, like developing themes or plugins, or just working on maybe client sites that you can clone, download onto those directories, and then work on them. It's not super easy to do this. That could be another talk for next year, but that's what you want to use those for. The third one is trunk, and like I mentioned, that's the one that has all of the latest code. And it also has a bit of a different directory structure that I'll get into right now. Actually, in a little bit. Now we can navigate at this point to trunk.wordpress.test and log into the admin dashboard using credentials of admin and password, which don't have to be very secure, luckily, because this is on your local computer. And here I'm kind of skipping ahead a bit where I logged in and I went to the page where you upload your theme or plugin files. And on the browser dev tools, this is a screenshot of Firefox. And here you see that I have the changes tab open, where you can see that I removed a padding of 5 pixels, 1 M and 0, 0. Through doing that, it goes back to the default setting that WordPress used to have, which, if I remember correctly, was padding 3 pixels and then 0. So it's 3 top and bottom, 0 left and right. And also, I'm adding justify content space between to space this more accordingly. Thing to note here is that those changes were made to the themes CSS file, okay? And what we want to do now is, since we looked at it on the dev, if you were doing PHP or JavaScript, obviously the process would be a little bit different. But since this is only CSS that we're working with, we're going to edit now the actual CSS file, which lies from the Vagrant directory in WordPress, www WordPress trunk public HTML source. That's important, and I'll get to that in a second. WP admin CSS themes CSS. After I save that file with the changes that I made, I run git diff, and there you can see the difference. This is through Git, the version control software. You can see the changes that were made. In red is what was removed. You see the padding there removed, and then on green is the content that was changed. So the justified content that was added. So that's what the diff looks like. After that is saved. This is saved. Well, we're going to run grunt build, and the reason we're doing this is because that's saved in the source directory, and the source. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. Grunt build, what it does is it grabs the code in the source directory and fixes it all up. That's a bunch of tasks. That's what grunt is a task runner, and it cleans up the code. It pre-processes CSS, changes SAS files to CSS, etc., and puts everything where it should be. Excuse me, I'm low on water here. So that's that grunt there, and what it does is it creates. So like I was saying, we have the source directory where we edit the code, and then the build directory is where, after grunt runs, sends all of the files that are processed with, if we had unit tests, etc., that would be done there. What this does is that the build directory is where the trunk.wordpress.test file site is being ran from. So if we edited the files in source and then tested them on the site, it would not be running. It would not be updated until we run grunt build. Now, this may be a little bit too easy since we are only editing CSS. But if we did maybe some JavaScript or PHP, we would likely need to run some unit tests or have more of a complex setup or scenario, which is why I chose to do only CSS today. And if being that we are doing only CSS, we could have conceivably just edited the live build folder, but that would cause other issues. So we'll just stick to what we should practice what I'm saying. After doing the grunt build, we want to verify that it actually did compile correctly and everything looks right. So we go back to trunk.wordpress.test, go to the dashboard, and sure enough, the files were processed correctly, and we see that now the browse button, it is correctly aligned vertically with the other area there. So now what we need to do is we made the changes, we updated the files, but we need to create the patch file to be able to upload to track. So here we see I just ran a couple of commands on the right-hand side. I ran git diff again, which shows the difference in the current working branch, what we changed. And what I want to do is I want to put that output into a file so other people can apply it and test it and see what the changes were. So we run git diff and do a closing chevron, which basically sends that output of that to a file, which in this case, if you remember, 49914 is the ID of the ticket that we created. And that's by convention. Whenever you create a diff file, you want to have that file be the file name be the track ticket. And if you create more more patch files, then you will add .2, .3, .4, .diff at the end. So that's what we did. And then as you can see, that's why I did cat and then the file name, and it shows the exact same thing because that's the content of our current file. That's about it, really. We patched, so we created, we edited the files, we ran the task manager grunt build to make sure that everything's done correctly. We would have had maybe some tests and created the, the patch file, which now we upload into Track. Being as verbose as possible, telling details of what we did. So you can see on the, well, you may not be able to see on the right, it's a little small. You can also do a search right now if you want, or afterwards, for the Track ticket number under Track, 49914, and you'll get a better view of the ticket. But I uploaded the ticket. I said, looks like editing theme CSS to add justify content space between and removing some padding did the trick. That's a comment for the patch file. And then I uploaded a lot, like 5 or 6 screenshots of what it looks like after the fact on other browsers. So that's basically it. Now we would just wait for people to comment and tell us what's going on. Thanks and happy contributing, but I see that I have a lot of time left. So luckily I am prepared with some extra things. So, well, again, my name is Sergio Scabuzzo. You can find me at Ecotechie on Twitter. And this is not live yet, but my website, ecotechie.io, if you go to contribute to WordPress, I will put these slides up and a lot of the links that I'm kind of just talking about. But we're going to have some bonus rounds because we have some extra time.
Yes, and don't forget, Sergio, we also have some Q&A. We do have a question in the pipeline, so if you want to do that before or after, whatever works.
Let me finish this. These will be pretty quick, I think.
Sounds good.
That's right. Excellent. So I thought I may go too fast. I speak fast usually. So after we're done with this, what we can do is I ran git status, and you see that we have all these extra files. We had an extra commit to the branch that we were working on. So if we run git reset with a flag of hard and then to origin master, what that does is it cleans out the current repo that we're working on and pulls from the master branch again. Now, this is dangerous because that means you just wiped all the work you did. But also it's great because we end up with a clean slate to start working again on a new patch or other things. And the last thing I'm going to be talking about is once we clean this get a new clean slate, we can actually test patches. Now, again, this is super contrived because I'm going to be testing my own patch that we just put up. But if you go to any of the Track tickets and you right-click where the download is, you can see it on the right-hand side. There's a little download link, and you copy that location. You can actually share that file with anyone that wants to test it out. But another thing you can do is you can just right-click that link. That is a link to the direct file. And then on the same directory, the source directory, you can just do a curl command, paste that link, that's a direct link to the file, and you pipe it to git apply. What that does is that immediately patches your current version of that trunk with the patch that we created. So now we're essentially back to where we left off originally, but you can do this with any other ticket. So if you wanted to help out WordPress core or WordPress in general with to do testing of other patches, this is how you could do it very easily. You just have your current setup, you reset to the head, so you have a clean slate, and you just add these patches and patch away and test. And with that, now I am done. So let's
all right.
Questions.
So we got some questions for you. These questions are from Joseph Dixon, who's on the YouTube site, checking out our WordCamp Santa Clarita feed of your presentation. First question is, do you receive notifications as your task or bug runs through the process?
Joseph, hello. Nice hearing from you. Notifications, I'm assuming you mean through the Track ticketing system. And yes, you receive notifications of everything, including what you do yourself. So if you create a ticket, you will be let known through the email that you have on WordPress.org account. So anytime anyone posts a link, you add. When I added all those images, every single time I added an image, I got an email and a notification. So yes.
Awesome. And then there's a follow-up a couple of lines later. It was first a statement of, wow, really excited by everything you're presenting today. And then did you have to build your own fix and submit the actual patch?
I sure did. I did this before the whole talk. This was going to be all live, and I was going to create and fix the patch live. And in retrospect, I'm very glad I didn't. But I did. This is live. If you look at the ticket number, I forget what the number was right now, but if you actually, where did it go? Yeah. If you do a search for ticket number 49914, you will see that it has been updated. There already has been a little bit of a back and forth and some updates to it.
Oh, very cool. I mean, this is definitely some very high minutia level stuff here when it comes to WordPress. My skill set is definitely not the great stuff that you're doing on the back end, which, that's the one beautiful thing about WordPress, right? This whole community comes together to make it all happen. Are you familiar with make.wordpress.org?
Boy, am I, yes. I live there often enough. I'm part of the documents group that tries to kind of edit some stuff here and there. And yeah, I was going to share a lot of links and realized that no one's going to be able to click on them. And I hate when people share very long links on slides that I then have to type out. So that's why hopefully I will have maybe later today, or at least by Monday, I will have this blog post up with all the links. And there's a lot of references on there about how to contribute and different ways to do it as well. Vagrant is not the only way. You can use Docker. You can use, instead of VirtualBox, you can use VMware, and there's many different options. So yeah, great resource.
Yeah, I was very impressed when I went to WordCamp US, where they had that whole day on Sunday where people just dedicated to making WordPress better. And it wasn't even just coders. It was marketers. It was people that were just hosting meetup groups, people that just wanted to be there to help. So, how can people help this cause?
Wow. I kind of neglected to say earlier, but there are a billion ways. This is one of them that we're doing right now, right? We're putting a WordCamp together. I am helping as a speaker. You all are volunteering. You can go on Slack. There's a WordPress Slack channel that has all of like sub channels for everything. Security, CSS, design, documentation, alone. There's so many things we can do to support WordPress, including writing our own plugins. You can write a plugin that helps the community. You can help users. You can help developers. You can help agencies. That's one of the beauties of, I think, about WordPress, is that you can know nothing about the first thing about coding and be helping so much. Just by volunteering, by putting your own time to help other people. You can go to the forums alone, just like go to the WordPress.org forums and just ask questions, or answer questions if you have availability. One thing I wanted to mention, as this kind of just came up for me, one thing you can do on this curl command that I shared earlier, if at the end of the command, let's say you ran this and you add a flag of hyphen capital R, it'll reverse what you just did. So that's another way to kind of add a patch, test it out, and then go back and then just do the same command with the R, and then go back to a clean slate again. So you can always kind of test patches back and forth.
Damn, chock full of knowledge just pouring out of your brain there, Sergio. Thank you so much for your time. Let's give a big virtual round of applause for Sergio Scabuzzo.
Thank you all.
Giving back to WordPress. If you're staying in this room, we've got preparing for the flood. How do you conduct your load testing to ready your WordPress site for viral events that everyone's going to be launching after this whole WordCamp, right? Sergio, are you going to be going to the Winner's Circle room at 3 p.m. for the?
Yeah, I plan on it, definitely.
There we go. So if you want to pick Sergio's brain a little bit more, feel free to meet up with him there. And then his contact information obviously is on the screen there for those of you joining us virtually. Thank you from all of us here at WordCamp Santa Clarita, and a virtual round of applause for Sergio. Thank you.
Thanks so much.